It's not every day you see one of the most powerful figures in the world reduced to tears, but that's exactly what happened. Imagine a man known for his larger-than-life personality, standing silently at a memorial, his shoulders trembling, tears streaming down his face. This wasn't a political stunt or a moment of weakness. It was something far more profound. What could possibly move Donald Trump, a man often described as unshakable, to this level of raw emotion? The answer isn't what you might think, and when you hear the full story, it might just change the way you see him forever. Stay with me, because what unfolded at this memorial will leave you speechless. It began quietly, a private event commemorating a lesser-known tragedy that had deeply impacted a small, tight-knit community. The location was unassuming, far removed from the media frenzy of Washington, D.C. or Mar-a-Lago. The invitation had been extended to Donald Trump months prior, and many wondered if he would even show up. After all, this wasn't a grand political rally or a high-profile event. This was intimate, emotional, and personal. The memorial was for a group of first responders who had tragically lost their lives in an act of bravery that most Americans had never heard about. Families of the fallen gathered, clutching photos of their loved ones and sharing stories of courage and sacrifice. The room was thick with emotion, the kind that silences even the most restless of crowds. When Trump entered, the atmosphere shifted. Dressed in a somber navy suit, he moved quietly, shaking hands and offering nods of acknowledgement. There were no grand gestures, no spotlight-seeking moments. Those who saw him that day remarked on how different he seemed. Less like the bold figure they were used to and more like someone carrying the weight of the world. The moment of truth. As the ceremony progressed, speakers shared stories of the fallen, heart-wrenching accounts of selflessness and bravery. A young boy took the podium, no older than 10, clutching a piece of paper in his trembling hands. "My daddy saved so many lives," he said, his voice cracking. "But he couldn't come home to us." The room fell silent. Eyes shifted to Trump as he leaned forward in his chair, visibly moved. Witnesses say it was at that moment his composure began to break. What happened next caught everyone off guard. Trump stood up and walked toward the boy. Kneeling down, he placed a hand on the child's shoulder. "Your dad was a hero," he said softly, his voice unsteady. "And I want you to know, we will never forget him." It was then that tears welled up in his eyes. For a man who had often been criticized for appearing detached or unemotional, this was a side of Trump the world had rarely, if ever, seen. His voice faltered, and he struggled to continue speaking. Those present said it felt as though the weight of the moment was too much, even for him. A deeper connection. Later, it was revealed that Trump's reaction wasn't just about the stories he'd heard that day. There was a personal connection that few knew about. One of the fallen first responders had written a letter to Trump during his 2016 campaign, expressing admiration for his resilience and leadership. The responder had shared dreams of seeing a stronger America, one where his children could grow up safe and proud. That letter had been kept in Trump's personal belongings, a reminder of the people who believed in him when he first sought the presidency. Learning that the author of that letter had died in the line of duty struck a chord that even he couldn't contain. In the days following the memorial, questions swirled. Why had Donald Trump reacted so strongly? What was it about this specific moment that brought him to tears in front of a crowd? As more details emerged, the full story painted a picture far more emotional than anyone could have imagined. It turns out the man who had written that heartfelt letter to Trump years ago wasn't just a supporter. He was a symbol of the very ideals Trump had campaigned on. The fallen first responder, Captain James Reynolds, had been a firefighter for 18 years. Known for his unwavering commitment to his community, James had saved countless lives over his career. But what made his story unique was his relentless optimism, even in the face of adversity. James's widow, Maria, shared a story during the memorial that truly struck a nerve. In the weeks leading up to his tragic death, James had been following Trump's public speeches. He often told his family, "Whether you like him or not, he believes in something bigger than himself. That's what matters." Maria recounted how James had spent his final days writing letters, not just to Trump, but to his children, colleagues, and friends. His message to Trump, in particular, was filled with hope for the country. He wrote, "In every fire I run into, I think of the people I'm saving, their families, their futures. I know you think the same way about this nation. Don't give up. That letter was read aloud at the memorial, and it was clear that Trump had been deeply affected. For a man often accused of being disconnected, it was a moment of undeniable humanity. He wasn't reacting as a politician or a public figure. He was reacting as a person who had been reminded of the weight of his responsibilities. Hashtag the unexpected turn. But there was one more twist that no one saw coming. After the ceremony, Trump approached Maria and her children. He told them, "I want you to know something. Your husband's words, they're with me every day. And they're going to drive everything I do moving forward." Trump then made a personal promise. He vowed to support the families of first responders in ways that extended beyond public gestures or policy announcements. He pledged to fund scholarships for the children of fallen heroes, including Maria's kids, out of his own pocket. "This isn't about politics," he said. "This is about honoring the people who give everything for us." It was a side of Trump that left even his critics stunned. The gesture wasn't announced to the press. It wasn't part of a campaign strategy. It was personal, raw, and real. For those who witnessed this moment, it was a powerful reminder that even the most polarizing figures can have moments of profound vulnerability and compassion. By the end of the memorial, the room was left with a sense of shared humanity. Donald Trump, often viewed as larger than life and distant, had shown a side of himself rarely witnessed. For a brief moment, the barriers of politics, power, and persona dissolved, leaving only the raw, emotional connection between a man and the families he sought to comfort. The reason behind his tears? It wasn't just the story of Captain James Reynolds. It was the collective weight of sacrifice, the lives lost, the families left behind, and the silent burden carried by those who serve others. Trump/U 2019's tears were not simply for one man, but for every unsung hero who had put others before themselves. But their/U 2019's something even more profound to take away. It/U 2019's a reminder of the depth of human connection that transcends titles and divides. In that moment, Donald Trump wasn't/U 2019 TA politician. He wasn't/U 2019 TA public figure. He was a man paying tribute to courage, to sacrifice, and to the unwavering spirit of those who inspire us to be better. And here/U 2019's where you come in. Take a moment to reflect on the unsung heroes in your own life. Maybe at/U 2019's a first responder, a teacher, a family member, or even a friend. Share their story in the comments below. Let/U 2019's honor their sacrifices, just as Captain James Reynolds/U 2019's legacy was honored that day. If this story moved you, consider sharing it with someone who needs a reminder of the good in the world. Because sometimes, it/U 2019's in the most unexpected moments that we find the humanity we/U 2019've been searching for all along. And to the families of first responders everywhere, your courage and sacrifice will never be forgotten. What story will you share today?